HD viewers, ladies and gentlemen, this is our weekly Addis Dialogue, which deals with current issues unfolding in Ethiopia and which also tries to put them into context in a bid to come up with pragmatic and practical solutions to the issues at hand. And in this regard, my guest today is Ambassador Avi Granot, who's joining me from Israel. He's a seasoned Israeli diplomat. He was Israeli ambassador to Ethiopia previously, and he was also appointed ambassador to Finland and Estonia. And prior to that, he pursued a diplomatic career in many countries, which included, among others, of course, positions in New York, Washington, Rome, Pretoria. Ambassador Avi Granot was also the chair of the European group of countries in the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. While in Israel, he also served as political advisor to the President of the State of Israel and later Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and head of the African Division. Ladies and gentlemen, with the program, I'm Shifarao Lako, and we're going to talk about current issues unfolding in Ethiopia, and we're going to come up with solutions to the problem, drawing on his rich expertise in the diplomatic arena. Do stay with us, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Adashifra. I'm delighted to join you again, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Absolutely, Ambassador. You deserve that. You are a great friend of Ethiopia, sir. And you know what? You successfully completed your term as Israeli ambassador to Ethiopia some years back, but you are still following new developments in Ethiopia. And not only that, you have been providing helpful and constructive ideas regarding Ethiopia. First of all, thank you so much for that.
Let me tell you a quick story. Before I was appointed, I was sitting in Washington. Before I was appointed in 95 as ambassador to Addis Ababa, I met a very, very good friend, the late Uri Lubrani, who was also many years before ambassador to Ethiopia. And I consulted him and I said, I'm being offered now to go to Addis Ababa. What do you think about it? And then he gave me one very quick answer. He said, first of all, I want you to just remember that one day you will leave Ethiopia after serving your term, but Ethiopia will never leave you. And that is very, very true. Even today, after so many years, I can tell you that I care very much for Ethiopia. I love the country, I love the people, and I'm very much always interested in following events in your wonderful country.
Wow, thank you so much for that wonderful idea. You know, Ethiopia will never leave you. You know, Ethiopia and Israel have wonderful relations spanning centuries, dating to the biblical times. I think that's maybe part of the reason that Ethiopia is still on your mind, sir. You were one of the diplomats that expressed hope in the aftermath of the reform spearheaded by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Now, in retrospect, what are the evaluations that you have made? What are the success stories and the hiccups that Ethiopia encountered?
I will tell you very honestly that I am a devout Democrat in the purest sense of the word, not Democrat from a party point of view, Republicans or Democratic. No, I am a Democrat. And I believe that countries have the only option for survival is maintain democratic values. This means that if Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed managed to form a government in a democratically elected situation, he has not only the right, but the obligation to maintain that kind of a government. Now, any opposition, and opposition in Israel we have plenty of, any opposition to the government has to be handled only, and I repeat, only in democratic ways and democratic discussions, not by weapons, not by arms, but in democratic process. Now, having said that, we have great difficulties in Israel. We have now forming a new government. It's very complex, and yet no one thinks of using arms against adversaries that are adversaries in a political sense. We may disagree, we may challenge each other, but we still evaluate the country as a democratic country. And I think what Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was trying to do and is trying to do is maintain a solid country, a solid community in spite of the differences, and prevent any attempt. And I have to emphasize that any attempt to use weapons against a legitimate government.
This East African nation has had to go through tough times, including the conflict between the federal government and TPLF. There were also other issues, as you very well know, and pressures coming from overseas. So in your evaluation, how has Ethiopia survived the challenges so far? And also, how should it turn the challenges to opportunities?
One of the biggest problems that we have been facing in the Middle East, that you have been facing, is lack of understanding of many of our colleagues abroad, many of our countries that want to support us, to try and infiltrate their thinking into our thinking, and that is very, very difficult. We have been victims of we in Israel, of many complaints by European countries, even by the United States and other countries, with the attempt to try and force us to do this or that, according to their thinking. Now, the only solution to that is maintain an ongoing dialogue with the United States and with Europe. They may not understand exactly where the country is heading. They may not exactly appreciate the attempts that are being made. But I believe that ongoing dialogue with the leadership of Europe, with the leadership of the United States, as, by the way, you do very well with the leadership in Africa. With the leadership in Africa, you have an ongoing rapport, an ongoing relations, and ongoing discussions. And we have seen the result of that when the ceasefire and the peaceful agreement has been reached with the help of various African leaders coming from South Africa, from Kenya, from other countries. But you have to maintain a very solid dialogue with the United States, with the European community, on individual basis, in order to explain to them, because they are not aware, they are looking at Africa in a very negative light, basically because of their past history. But I think that what we are attempting to do in Israel, and this is my recommendation to the leadership in Addis Ababa, is keep ongoing extensive dialogue on the highest possible level. I want to see the Prime Minister meeting the President of the United States, continuously explaining to him the situation and convincing them and many European leaders of the position that the legitimate government under Abiy Ahmed has to take, including in difficult times.
Do you see some tasks maybe left undone in this regard?
Well, I can only tell you of our own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And our own experience in Israel, because we have had great difficulties with the European leadership, even with the United States. One of the things that we have tried continuously to maintain is ongoing dialogue. Has it helped? Absolutely. Has it alleviated misunderstandings? Very much. Very much. And we have been accused by many Arab leaders in horrible ways. And the only way we could manage to get a different position and different opinions is through maintaining ongoing extensive dialogue with the help of many of our colleagues. And I think that some of the African leaders who appreciate your efforts, and there are current leaders and former leaders who appreciate the effort that your Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is doing, they should also be a voice to the international community.
Now, moving forward, Ambassador, as you know, the Ethiopian government and TPLF have signed a peace deal in South Africa and Kenya. Have you noticed some signs of growing rapprochement in the aftermath of the peace deal? What are some of the things that you saw?
It takes time. It takes time. I am a very practical person. And I can, first of all, I think that the actual fact that the leadership of the TPLF, and I know from my own past stay in Ethiopia, some of them quite well, as you can imagine. Right. The fact that they agreed to sign that peace agreement is already a very, very important move. But this is not sufficient. Signing an agreement and implementing it are two different venues, and it takes time. The fact that such an agreement has been signed, and I do realize not everyone in the TPLF is happy about the agreement, but the road is definitely the right road. So it's very difficult today to let you know that this implementation is already taking place. I think that it requires still quite a lot of efforts, both on the leadership of the TPLF first and foremost, but also on the leadership of the Ethiopian government, from Prime Minister downwards, to ensure that it is being followed in a very smooth way, slowly by slowly.
Restoration of services and reconstruction of damaged infrastructure are some of the encouraging results that are being provided after the truce. I want to ask you this question as well, Ambassador. How should both sides commit themselves to sustaining this positive development by, working for the full implementation of the truce?
Well, here again, I think that you need the support of neighboring countries as well as the international community. In order to achieve the kind of wishes of the government, and the government is very clear on its wishes, it needs the support, the help of the international community. The international community has to help, not in the fighting, as in some cases it happened, but in the process of reconstruction of the different elements, of supporting the economic help, and they should be doing that. This is their responsibility to help. They intervened in a wrong way. Now it's their obligation to intervene in the right way. And the right way, in my mind, I have to tell you very honestly, is coming to the government of Ethiopia, to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and tell him, here is our contribution. What do you need? You need to restore the damage. You need to restore the communities. You need to restore the economy. We will help you. With that kind of help, I think the process is guaranteed.
Thank you so much for that wonderful idea just raised, Ambassador. Since also you worked in different countries, assuming different positions, maybe are there any suggestions that you want to recommend to Ethiopia to draw on experience of other nations that would, that went through similar issues, similar situations?
My years of experience have taught me one very important element. You have to maintain dialogue, especially when there are disagreements. When there are full agreements, there is no need for an extensive dialogue. If I come to a Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, with whom Israel has a problem, and I come to him and I say, Mr. Minister, we have to engage in a serious discussion because we have a problem, all of them will accept it. Now, if there are no problems, you don't need to do that. So my contribution as a diplomat has always been to take the biggest challenge, the biggest problem, and say, but in a very open discussion, to our partners abroad, we have a problem. And it's not my problem, it's our problem. It's our problem. It's your interest and our interest to maintain good relations. It's your interest, it's our interest to maintain positive dialogue. Now, does it always work? Regrettably not. Regrettably not. Why? Because very often other countries have different positions, different interests. We try to analyze those problems. We try to analyze those interests, and whenever possible, maintain a dialogue. Regrettably, we do have cases where we have not been successful, but I have to say, honestly, that I cannot think of any other way.
In this regard, of course, you touched upon this negotiation and also explaining the matter to the Western friends. You said that earlier in our discussion. In addition to that, sir, how should the relationship between Ethiopia and the West continue in the future for better mutual benefits?
We ask our Iran and many other countries, and in a sense, it's not an issue that we have to be upset at. We cannot take that the opposition to our position cannot be taken to our heart. We have to continuously struggle with those positions. I believe, and I'm very honest here, I believe that the United States and Europe has taken the wrong position when it came to the TPLF attack on the legitimate government of Ethiopia. I'm convinced of that. I think they have taken the wrong position. Getting upset is not going to help. Getting furious is not going to change it. Continuously dialoguing with them, continuously explaining to them where Ethiopia is heading, what are its interests, and understanding that they have also some interests. Many of them many countries have financial interests, not only political, but financial. We know that. So what? This should not prevent us for being very adamant on where we stand, what we do, and yes, demand very clear understanding from the other side, whether it is Europe, whether it is the United States, whether it is some of the African countries. Yes, we need help, and it's your obligation, because of the situation, to help us, not in the fighting, but in the reconstruction.
I'm sure that you've heard about Ethiopia's efforts to export wheat to its neighbors, and also there's this effort which is going on to integrate the region using power. So how
Yes.
should Ethiopia cooperate with its neighbors in this regard, in its efforts to, reinforce regional ties, spanning a number of areas, as I said, ranging from power to wheat and also fruits exports, Ambassador?
Well, Ethiopia, first of all, has a tremendous potential. I want to remind my friends in Ethiopia that Ethiopia has been always seen in a leadership position in the African continent. Throughout Africa, Ethiopia has been seen as a leader in Africa, and it is clear that the African Union is in Addis Ababa, and the position of Ethiopia is immensely important. Now, in order to achieve that, of course, one has to maintain the best possible regional relations with all the countries around us. South Sudan and Eritrea and of course Somalia and Kenya and all the rest of them. It is very, very, very important that Ethiopia, with its capacity, says to them, listen, we have problems, all of us. We have problems. We have economic problems that are much more critical than even the political problems. We have to cooperate. We have to see what we can do. Ethiopia has done an incredible task with the Renaissance Dam. I think the Renaissance Dam providing electricity to Ethiopia is really a great achievement. It is also the responsibility of Ethiopia to share the electricity with its neighbors. We have quite a bit of desalinating water, and we don't use as much the natural water that we have in the Lake of Galilee. Now, Jordan is in dire needs of water. So we provide every year tremendous amount of water to Jordan. Why? Because we understand that if we have excess water and Jordan lacks water, we will provide it. If countries around Ethiopia lack energy, don't have sufficient energy, and now Ethiopia is in a capacity to come to them and say, listen, we can provide you with energy, we can provide you with water, we can provide you with wheat. Why? Why not out of goodwill, out of neighborliness? We want to be neighbors, and neighbors share their resources and neighbors also have the responsibility of ensuring that the whole neighborhood is successful. Ethiopia definitely is a leader in that kind, not only a leader in Africa, but definitely a leader in that area. But any attempt, and this is very important, any attempt to misuse our goodwill has to be answered. Our goodwill has to go both ways. And I know that there are attempts by some groups, not necessarily countries, but some groups, to affect the goodwill of Ethiopia. So Ethiopia has to be on the guard, but at the same time, do everything possible to help its neighbors.
Wow, what a message, wonderful ideas you've just raised, Ambassador. I really enjoyed my stay with you. Thank you so much for your time and for the ideas that you raised, Ambassador, and also for closely following things happening in Ethiopia and providing constructive and important ideas, sir.
Thank you very much, Atashifuro, and my best regards and wishes to your country, to your leadership, and to the people of Ethiopia, whom I love very dearly.
Well, dear viewers, with that, we come to the end of today's program. Thank you so much for having been with us so far. Until I see you next time with another program, it's goodbye from me, Shifaronek. Stay safe and take care.